So you're saying the midnight dumpers are spewing this hazardous waste all over the country?
Absolutely.
In our rivers?
Absolutely.
In our oceans?
Absolutely.
And
polluting your food, your water, maybe someday killing you.
how long have these drums been here?
These drums have been here 5 years, and they were so toxic, they're still here.
We're talking about poisoning the atmosphere. We're talking about poisoning the wells. We're talking about killing people. We're talking about people's houses where they spent their whole life getting a house together. This is your most dangerous problem for our times.
The people who wanted to buy you out in 1976, were they nice guys?
No, they were soldiers in the organized crime families.
Why should we trust you now? Why should we believe you?
I want to leave something for 20 years from now or 10 years from now. People will understand that I am telling the truth, that I have alerted them to a danger that's unbelievable. And if they don't want to accept that, sir, there's nothing I can do about it.
You know as well as I do that there's a hell of a lot of money to be made in the movement of hazardous waste. Phenomenal amounts of money. So from the point of view of organized crime, the motive to be involved is there. I mean, that's the name of the game. They're not in it for any, I mean, money.
In the Mafia's war against America, the illegal dumping of hazardous waste is a new and deadly front. Last week in Boston, representatives from 11 states sat down to map a counterattack.
Now, if you thought it was uncomfortable to be online for gasoline, think what it's going to be like someday to be online for water. All right? Think about it.
These are law enforcement officers, environmental protection agents, and specialists in the investigation of organized crime. While no one knows the extent of organized crime's control of the hazardous waste market, these officials know it is costing taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars, and that is the least of it.
And if that happens, and they control the movement of all this hazardous waste, then, ladies and gentlemen, we better find another place to live. I mean, it's that simple. Am I being dramatic?
December 12th, 1977. Ruben Gonzalez, organizer of a garbage union, and his bodyguard Raymond Aponte are shot through the head and left in the trunk of a car at Kennedy International Airport. May 31st, 1978. Gabriel Sanfelice, operator of Sano Carting of New Jersey, is gunned down while unloading a dumpster at a local landfill. December 22nd, 1980. Crescent Roselli, a manager for SCA Services, Inc., the country's third largest waste disposal company, is shot 5 times outside his New Jersey office. At the time he was murdered, each man was involved in disputes over garbage contracts.
The mob controls an industry that's a necessity to every single one of us. Because we're not talking about victimless crimes, we're not talking about prostitution, we're not talking about illegal liquor, we're not talking about something that people don't have to use. You understand? We're not talking about gambling. I'm talking about Joe Citizen that has a house that he spent $60,000 of his life's money. All of a sudden somebody comes to him and says, "Goodbye, Charlie, your water's polluted. There's a landfill next door there where they've been dumping toxic waste there for 13 years.
Our chief witness tonight is Harold Kaufman, a man who talks rarely on television. Once he was a partner with the mob in the garbage business. In 1978, as president of a company called Wayne Marine, he agreed to work undercover for the FBI. Now, hidden from public view, he does most of his talking to federal and state officials. They have used his testimony to indict 59 waste disposers. He is a marked man who lives under the protection of the Federal Witness Security Program. The men he turned on were powerful mafia figures for whom he engaged in numerous illegal activities.
I actually, more than anything else, did a lot of bribery, you know, public officials. And I did that because it was part of my job.
For the mob?
For the mob.
You actually bribed men holding office in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, sir. Mayors. And I'd say that I bribed over 20 different companies, industrial bribery, to get their garbage contracts. Purchasing agents and that. Something I did
From 1978 through 1980, you were president of a company called Duane Marine. Briefly, what was the company licensed to do?
Duane Marine was licensed to transport and dispose of, it was a grave. In other words, it was actually the disposer of toxic waste.
You buried the stuff.
But we didn't bury it. There was no place to bury it. In other words, we had a license as not as a transfer station, not as a transporter. We had a license that we were a toxic waste disposal company. We could burn it or bury it. We had nothing to burn it with. We had no keels. We had nothing to bury it with. So we kept piling it.
Where?
Right in our property, sir. You go to Ford, you go to Chevron, for instance, you go to Exxon, you go to the Fortune 500. I've dealt with Kodak and every one of them. And we go to them and we don't tell them that we're going to dump it illegally. We show them the license. Hey, look, Duane Marine, who shouldn't be allowed to be a door catcher, never mind a toxic waste disposal. He had a license from the state of New Jersey, the first one to legally get rid of waste. He had a concrete pad, and all he was doing was piling them. Pile after pile after pile after pile, till we had 18,000 drums there.
And that's illegal?
Sir, it certainly is illegal.
You're not supposed to have it there.
Of course, you're supposed to dispose of it. Is this disposing of it?
The Mafia moved into the garbage business back in the 1950s. Few of us paid attention. But now, with deadly poisons in those dumps, industrial wastes like PCBs, acids, and dioxins, garbage is not what it used to be. America produces 250 million tons of hazardous waste each year, far more than we have facilities to handle. So a lot of it gets dumped illegally. And that's a situation tailor-made for organized crime. With its previous infiltration of the traditional garbage business, the mob was poised to enter into the illegal disposing of hazardous waste.
How did organized crime get into the business?
Well, you have to understand the property rights system.
Explain it to me.
You have $10 worth of garbage. Any other business, you can call the nearest guy and say, hey, I want my garbage picked up for $10, right? It doesn't work that way under property rights. I own that property as long as it stays there. I pick up the garbage. Nobody can pick it up.
Let's stop and take this step by step. I have opened a legitimate business in the state of New York, the state of New Jersey, the state of Arizona, and I have garbage to dispose of. Harold Kaufman comes to me and says, I want to dispose of your garbage. If Joe Smith, another garbage company operator, comes to me and says, I want to dispose of your garbage for $2 less a drum or a yard than Harold Kaufman, why can't I give my business to Joe Smith?
Because you won't get your truck out of there. You'll either get your truck blown up, or you'll get shut because under property rights, you just don't do that.
In other words, Harold Kaufman and the mob have the property rights over my garbage.
You don't own it. You don't own it. It's your company. It's your garbage, but you don't own it. I own it. I have the property rights. I, Harold Kaufman, have the property rights, because if I don't, I'll go to Vinnie Morrow, who'll kill you. That's the way organized crime has been in there from the word go.
How can you enforce that? If I want to give it to this fellow, your competitor.
Yes, sir. Let's take Ford, for instance.
In New Jersey.
Great company.
Actual account.
Ford. Actual.
Real story.
Real story. Actual story. Ford Motor Car Company was done by a company called ISA of New Jersey. An outlaw came in. Marvin Mahan of Scientific Disposal. I use the word outlaw because under the property rights system, anybody that doesn't play by the rules is an outlaw. Mr. Mahan came with his trucks, took the garbage, put the compactors in there. He's ready to do the big job. First thing that happened, 12 of his trucks where sand was put in it. Didn't work. Mr. Mahan was stubborn. Then a gun was put to Mr. Mahan's head. He was given a choice. Either get out, or you won't have to worry about picking up garbage.
Why has organized crime been so interested in moving into and controlling toxic wastes?
The profit motive. The same garbage that used to be $2 a yard, one day by a stroke of pen, became hazardous. The garbage didn't change. It's just a stroke of the pen made it a different type of disposal.
Let me see if I understand that.
Sure.
When the federal government declared that toxic wastes have to be treated differently from solid wastes, immediately the profit stability of toxic waste went up?
Over 150 to 200%. Ford garbage alone, for the same sludge, and I hope you don't mind me using Ford again, because it is a prime example, because you have 8 garbage men stay there permanently just to get rid of their waste. That's the amount of waste they produce in Metuchen.
Metuchen, New Jersey.
Metuchen, New Jersey, in their assembly plant. You have this sludge, the paint sludge. We used to charge them, I think it was $20 a drum. It went up to $200 a drum.
Just like that?
Just like that, just by a stroke of the pen.
A
stroke of the pen.
Federal government said you got to do something with this. This is dangerous.
This is dangerous, but wasn't it just as dangerous the day before? It didn't change the danger. Do you follow me?
I follow.
So you take that same stuff, you get a phony to sign it off, like Dwayne Marine. You say, I'm disposing of it legally. Ford thinks, okay, they changed it. They're doing it a different way now legally, so it's more expensive for them. Sure, we'll give them that money because we want to do it the right way. We don't want to poison the atmosphere. You're telling us you're going to do it the right way.
So overnight you charge Ford more to take care of toxic waste than you were charging the day before, but you don't handle it any differently.
Absolutely not. In one of the tapes I made when I was
An informant
for the FBI.
And you were taping the mob?
I was taping the mob. Who was with the Chingiganti family and the whole thing. I was taping him. And in it, he says to me, we got to show Ford we're doing it legally. We got to show Ford we're doing it legally. There's 6,000 drums. Understand this. There's 6,000 drums right to this minute sitting in the industrial landfill in Edison, which is not a toxic waste landfill, which is not a sludge landfill. It's a solid waste landfill.
And it shouldn't be there.
Of course it shouldn't be there.
Well, where did the profit come from this? How did you make money from that?
Well, if he's charging us $1, we're charging Ford $40. We made $39 a drum. That's pretty good profit.
To see what organized crime can do, come with me to the home site of Chemical Control Corporation of Elizabeth, New Jersey. It was a disaster in waiting. 2.5 acres of corrosive and highly toxic wastes, the kind that can burn with poisonous fury. Consider what happened to Chemical Control when the mob took over. William Carosino was one of the owners. As he's testified to Congress, he was in his office that day when some men walked in and made him an offer they told him he couldn't refuse.
Who came in to see you? The first time they came in and said, we want to buy you out.
John Albert. No, they didn't say they want to buy me out. They walked in and says they are the new managers of the company. That was John Albert, Gene Conlon, and my former partner, Mike Collingwood.
Just like that. We're the new managers of the company.
That's right.
You hadn't known of this before?
I didn't know they were going to do this, no.
What'd they say?
They just told me they were the managers, I would run the company, we would make a lot of money, they would use the certificates from Chemical Control to dispose of the waste, but it wouldn't be done.
Why did they want that?
Because Chemical Control had a license. It could be licensed, come into Chemical Control being burnt, but it didn't have to be burnt. They could have dumped it in a landfill and collected it.
Well, they could claim that they disposed of it legally, but in fact they were getting rid of it illegally.
That's right.
In other words, you would become a...
Front. Nothing but a front.
So what did you say to them?
I told them no.
And what did they say?
They said if I don't work with them, I had to get out. I says, I'm getting out. And I went out the door, I took most of the papers that I could. When I got out to the car, John Albert opened up his coat, and he had a white pearl-handled gun in his pants pocket. He said, this is what you're going to get. If I don't keep quiet.
You could see the gun?
Oh, yeah, he had his hand on the gun. It was on the right side of my Cadillac. He put his foot on a bumper. Show me the gun.
You remember it?
Oh, yeah, I'll never forget it.
Nor will he forget the place under the bridge in Newark where prior to that visit, someone dumped toxic drums bearing the name of Carosino's company. He was arrested and sent to jail. He claims, and we talked to law enforcement people who believe him, that he was framed.
I was set up. When they come, oh, they chained this goddamn place. Look at this. They caught us here the other day. Look, they blocked it all up, too.
What's out there? Drums?
Yeah.
Toxic waste?
Yeah. Oh.
Let's go
walk in.
Yeah, let's walk in. Why were these barrels dumped here, Bill?
I think they were put here to get me in trouble so that they could use an excuse to take over Chemical Control. In fact, I know that's what it was.
In other words, to frame you.
Frame me so that they could take over the company.
What's in them, Bill?
Well, I don't know what's in these drums. These are not drums from my place. These didn't come from it.
You think they contained toxic waste?
Oh yeah, they still do. They still do. And if you look over there, there's another set of drums over there. See them?
Yeah, right under the bridge.
Right under the bridge. Now the drums that belong to chemical control, the drum, not the physical chemical, but the drum, is right in front of us. These are the drums that I admit are mine. They had chemical control's names on them. These are the drums that the prosecutor said was toxic poison, was going to kill everybody. 5 years ago, they're still here.
You think they're still hazardous?
I don't think they were done. That drum there could be acid.
Acid.
This is either acetic acid, nitric acid, sulfuric acid, or hydrochloric.
If a kid came along here and accidentally opened it or
They
delivered
could get burnt.
a kid coming along playing,
They get burnt on this drum. This drum is dangerous.
how many sites like this are there around the country, Bill?
Thousands. Thousands.
So we're not talking about just a local, temporary problem?
Nope.
What are we talking about?
Talking nationwide.
And what kind of problem?
I'm talking a problem. Well, what you're doing is you're talking about if a kid don't come and get burnt, okay? When these drums do eventually break and rot, they're going to go into the ground and into our waterways and pollute our drinking water. 85% of our water companies do not check for anything except heavy metals and cyanides. They don't check for amines. They don't check for any toxic chemical other than that. Now, if you look at all the sites that are like this and a potential poisoning, we're poisoning ourselves.
In our children's country.
That's right.
Because they're going to grow up with this stuff in the ground.
Well, I think our children eventually in the generations to come, the genetic changes from this is going to be very bad.
It's that powerful stuff.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Let's get out of here. I don't want to be around this joint.
Mr. Albert, approximately when did you first enter the chemical waste disposal business?
This is Johnny Albert, the man Carosino says forced him out in 1977. He testified in 1980 before congressional hearings on the mob's influence of chemical control.
Not to coaching the witness for specific
Please
answers.
answer. Repeat the question, please.
Approximately when did you first enter the chemical waste disposal business?
At the time of these hearings, Albert was under investigation for a variety of charges. He is now serving an 11.5-year sentence for illegal dumping, for racketeering and gambling, and for narcotics. According to the New Jersey police, Albert is a soldier in the Genovese crime family.
Approximately 1977.
Did you have a financial interest in the Chemical Control Corporation?
What do you mean by a financial interest?
Did you receive any...
Let me ask you something about this that's truly puzzling to me. The men who are dumping this toxic waste illegally, including members of organized crime, they have families and wives and children and grandchildren whose future is in this country. Don't they care, even though they're criminals, about what happens to their children?
These are the same people that are putting junk in the arms of high school kids. Do they care about that? These are the same people that are out there every single day running planes with cocaine in there, poisoning the insides of people. These are the people that are the leeches of the world.
Remember this sight and sound. This is the whirlwind to be reaped when organized crime has its way. In the darkness of a spring night in 1980, Chemical Control Corporation exploded into flames. You could hear and see it from miles away. This happened, after all, only 10 miles from Times Square, in the very midst of one of the country's most crowded metropolitan areas. As noxious fumes rose over nearby communities, schools were closed and residents told to stay indoors. It cost New Jersey taxpayers $26 million to clean up. The investigation into the fire drags on, about as slowly as our society's ability to cope with the criminals and corruption that make it possible and repeatable.
Are we talking about only a local problem, or is this something that's likely to affect and therefore should concern the whole nation?
Absolutely. At the present time, I've talked to 5 attorney generals in 5 different states. The mob is moving into Florida, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, any place where the Sun Belt is moving and high tech is moving there right behind them.
In the garbage business?
In the garbage business and the hazardous waste disposal business. A very intelligent Deputy Attorney General made a very good statement. He says, people, if you see a toxic waste truck coming down your road, you know it don't belong there. Call a cop, because I can't watch every road. The impotence of the regulatory agencies, Bill, is unreal. It's something that's hard for an ordinary person to understand. It's a joke. You know what a joke is? When you have 74 inspectors for the whole country.
So in your judgment, if we don't rid this business of organized crime, what will happen to us?
20 years from now, the love canals will be amateurish.
What do you mean by that? What's the long-range consequence if we don't control this?
I think you'll have 1,000 love canals all over this country. This is your most dangerous problem for our times.